Oh, well, WWE Raw's debut on Netflix is in the books. The show just went off the air with a great main event between CM Punk and Seth Rollins that the fans seemed to enjoy. CM Punk picked up the win, hitting Seth Rollins with 2 GTSs in the end after the two had quite the war, quite the battle, hitting each other with their finishers. And in the end, as I predicted, CM Punk got the win here. I do not believe this is going to be the last time these guys face each other. I think the next time they get in the ring together, Seth Rollins will be the one to win that. Now, the scenario that I laid out prior to the show, and on the podcast over the weekend was that CM Punk would beat Seth Rollins here on Monday night. That would earn him a championship match against Gunther at the Royal Rumble. CM Punk will then beat Gunther and take the championship into WrestleMania to drop it to either Seth Rollins or to Roman Reigns. That's what I feel like they're going to do. But we didn't get a lot revealed in terms of what John Cena's exact plans were going to be. We kind of already knew he was going to be in the Rumble, so that wasn't that much of a surprise. The Rock showing up tonight, though, also makes you wonder with him coming out in the beginning of the Tribal Combat match and putting the Ula Fala on Roman Reigns. That could be a tease of Rock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania that WWE can count on that being one plan. And then if that doesn't happen, they can go in another direction. What doesn't feel like it's going to happen now is Cody versus The Rock. After everything The Rock did to him during the build to WrestleMania last year, beating the shit out of him in front of his bus in the rain and shit talking his mama while he was doing it. All of that. These guys run into each other in the parking garage and just hug, and The Rock puts Cody over in his promo. So it doesn't feel like Rock and Cody would really be on the radar now. Maybe that's because they already have other plans for Cody and they want to squash any of that with The Rock. Maybe last year they thought they would do Rock and Cody. Now Cody and Cena maybe is the more attractive match. Roman and Rock, Roman and Punk, it just depends. So we didn't get really any concrete answers quite yet for WrestleMania, and we probably won't until we at least get a Rumble winner, for the men and the women, and then we'll figure the rest out at the Elimination Chamber. So based on what Cena said, what The Rock said, we didn't get too many clues as to what the Mania plans will be, except for the one that I mentioned, and that was CM Punk beating Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship at the Royal Rumble. I think CM Punk needs to be in a major match at WrestleMania, and if WWE wants to give him his WrestleMania main event, I've felt all along, this is what I've said for months, there needs to be a compromise there. Okay, Phil, you're going to get your WrestleMania main event, and we're happy to have you, and we're glad that everybody's getting along now, but we're not going to forget the way you trashed us for 10 fucking years. So it's going to be really tough for us to just give you this big moment. So you're going to get your WrestleMania main event, but you're going to lose. That's the compromise there, as my cat is falling. Let me go rescue him. Tito, you all right? Oh my God, you okay, buddy? You okay? Holy shit. Whew. Man, I've just got problems tonight. Tito just fell off of his cat tower, and he was just like hanging upside down. Oof. Anyway, I had to save him. All right, where was I? talking about The Rock and Cody Rhodes and what everybody's plans could be for WrestleMania. And I think with CM Punk, if he's going to get that WrestleMania main event night 1 or night 2, great, he can get that, but he's going to have to lose. And I think that's kind of where they're going here, giving him that big Hell in the Cell win over McIntyre, and then, winning in War Games alongside Roman Reigns, and then he's beating Seth Rollins here. And then if he beats Gunther at the Royal Rumble for the title, that's going to be a lot of upward momentum for him, and it would, make sense for him to lose by that point. You still got to take into consideration whatever that favor is that Paul Heyman supposedly owes CM Punk for him joining Roman's team at War Games. So Heyman has to repay that favor. So I'm wondering how they play that off. Like if my scenario is true, Punk wins the championship, then what favor is Heyman going to have to repay him? What would Heyman have that Punk would need? He's already the champion. Maybe it's something like he has Heyman broker a deal with Pierce for a match with Gunther, but I don't understand why Punk just couldn't do that himself. So it's possible that my idea of Gunther versus CM Punk at the Rumble might not be right if they still want to play into this favor that Heyman supposedly owes to CM Punk. So if that wasn't going to happen, if this whole idea I have of Punk and Gunther working at the Rumble doesn't happen, then what does happen at the Rumble? Who does Gunther work with? Goldberg? Probably not. I would like to see maybe a repeat of the Eddie Guerrero and Brock Lesnar and Goldberg situation from back in the day. Maybe it's Punk and Gunther during the build to Royal Rumble. Gunther maybe verbally trashes Goldberg a couple of times. Goldberg shows up, spears Gunther at the Rumble, Punk wins the championship, and then you set up Goldberg and Gunther for WrestleMania. You could also do that at Elimination Chamber. You could do Punk and Gunther. Maybe Punk is in the Rumble and Rollins eliminates him. And then Punk winds up winning the Chamber instead, and that's where Gunther loses the belt. Or maybe Punk beats Gunther at the Chamber, That's where that happens. And then maybe Rollins or Roman wins the Chamber. I don't know. See what I mean about all the different directions you could go in? And we didn't get any of that really revealed to us tonight, but we did get some clues and we did get some ideas and some train of thought we can now take ourselves down when it comes to thinking about how WrestleMania is going to be booked. So let me know all your scenarios too in the chat below as we're going through the results here of tonight's Raw. How you think WrestleMania could book out? What do you think the main event of the two nights are going to be? Are we going to get multi-man matches, or is it going to be just straight championship matches? At some point, the women are going to have to main event again as well. I don't think if they have that in the cards this year or not, probably not, but soon that'll have to be a thing again. Yeah, 7th season. If Gunther loses, the only person I can think of for Gunther to face at Mania would be Goldberg, since they already did tease a lot of that. So, Gunther is another guy that I would worry about, because you wouldn't want to see him really wrestle for the IC or the US. I think Gunther, if he drops the title, I think that's just a temporary thing. He'll be world champion again, and then he could maybe go to SmackDown and, go after that championship or something. I don't know. But I feel like with CM Punk, he's popular, he's healthy. You got to strike while the iron is hot on that. It's WrestleMania. I just don't think with Punk, you have the luxury of just assuming that he's going to be perfectly healthy by the time next year rolls around. So if you've got him here and the fans are, and he's still, a needle mover, he is absolutely, then you take advantage of that needle moving right now. And that's what I think they set in motion here tonight. And I wouldn't feel too bad about Seth Rollins. Rollins is going to have his day. He's gone above and beyond ever since 2022 when Cody came in. Put him over. With that final Hell in a Cell match with Cody's, busted titty, and then everything he did last year, helping Cody, after all that they went through, now he helps Cody get back to the championship, and is a big reason why Cody was able to beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And Rollins lost his own championship last year, largely in part because he was not 100% and he was going into these matches, before he's got to defend a world championship. So I always said, after the 3 matches that Cody beat Seth earlier in 2022, the next time these guys face, Seth needs to get the victory. So Punk and Cody both owe Rollins victories. And I think he will have that time. He will. And we'll talk about Cena and all that stuff here in just a minute. But the show opened up. And again, for those of you just joining us, this was supposed to be a watch-along and review combo. And I had planned to go live 10 minutes before the top of the hour, 10 minutes before the show started. And I'm sitting down. It's literally 4:50 local time, 7:50 East Coast. And I'm like, okay, cool, here we go. I'm all ready to go. All I got to do is push one button to go live. And right when my finger touches my mouse, lights go out. All the power in my house out. I go outside, the whole fucking neighborhood is out. I call the electric company. There's a power outage in the area, and they were expecting the outage to take 2 hours to restore. And it took 2 hours and 4 minutes. I sat here in the dark with a candle when I'm supposed to be live streaming, hanging out with all of you guys, sitting here in the dark, sad with my phone with a candle, saddest thing you've ever seen, watching Raw and with no power. And finally, it comes on. I immediately jump right into the chair here. We go live. I flip the switches. We're up. We caught the second half of Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre, and we caught the main event, CM Punk and Seth Rollins. So I missed, the first 2 hours of the show to experience with you guys, but I did watch it on my phone, which I have not watched a 2-hour wrestling show on my phone ever. So it was an experience, but with all the lights out, I could actually see okay. So that's kind of how I was able to watch Raw for the beginning part of that tonight. But now we are here for our review, and I want to talk about what we saw tonight because it did open with some interesting stuff. Because of my power outage, one thing that I didn't really notice too much until I got live here in front of the larger screen was that there were some different camera angles tonight, different production techniques it looked like they were using. I also really liked the, I don't know if they were up in a skybox or what on the first level there, but those interviews with Jackie Redmond kind of reminded me of, even though I think they were up in the audience a little bit, they reminded me of those old platform interviews that they would do in the 80s and a little bit of the 90s there, with Mean Gene on the weekend shows when he would have wrestlers up there and do interviews in front of the crowd and stuff. And it kind of gave off those vibes. And I really liked kind of that old school feel that it gave you, but they also had, a lot of drone work, a lot of great, overhead and aerial camera stuff, even a lot of stuff outside the stadium, and even the camera angles, a little bit tighter, I forgot what Barry had called it, just the way the resolution or whatever it is on the camera behaves looks a little different on Netflix than just standard cable TV. So you can tell that, WWE, production wise, they are, they have no peers in that realm. They're very, very good at that. And I like fresh looking stuff. And it looks like they gave us a fair amount of that tonight. We also had the black ring mat. SmackDown had blue. Raw has black. I was wondering if it was going to be red, and I was hoping it wasn't going to be red because that bleeds your eyes out. So black is kind of cool. Bunch of advertisements. They had the Fortnite video game, I guess, kind of in the middle there, along with Netflix and Snickers up at the top. And then in the corners, they had Riyadh season and Hulk Hogan's Real American Beer, which we'll talk about Hulk Hogan in a minute. Motherfucker got booed right the hell out of Intuit Dome tonight. And that piece of shit deserved every bit of it. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to watch. So those changes and the new look, and I'm not sure if every Raw is going to look this way. I felt like this was a sellout, so they had that minimalist set. I don't know if Raw is going to go back to having the screen next week where it usually is or not. So the set in the aisleway didn't look different than what we've seen, but not sure if it's going to be a permanent look for Raw, if they might tweak that up. Also, Michael Cole and Pat McAfee, they are our commentating team for Raw now. It sounds like Tessitore, I think, is going to move to SmackDown with Corey Graves, I guess. That's what they're going to do. So it's going to be Cole and McAfee at least until football season again, which will be like September. So we've got a lot of McAfee to get used to. And I really liked the beginning of the show when they had the big drapes down, the curtains covering the ring. And I thought it was like to hide the ring, and it kind of was, but it was also to show a big giant fucking video opening the show, taking us through a history of all the great moments on the 32-year history of this TV show that now is on Netflix for the first time. So that all looked very nice. But I don't think we got a Raw intro. Now, that's kind of a new song anyway, like that Travis Scott, who was also on the show tonight, smoking a blunt or something, which was awesome. He's the one that does. I'm not familiar with him. I just learned who he was like a week ago. I saw the name Travis Scott, and I just thought it must be some hillbilly with a cowboy hat. Nope, it's a black rapper. He was on the show tonight, and I guess he's the one that does the intro to Raw. So, and that's kind of new. So I didn't think we'd get a brand new intro, but maybe they're looking to, I don't know, tweak one up or something. We will see. But I didn't see an intro, and correct me if I'm wrong if there was one and I missed it. Also, yes, thank you, Mike Witt. Thank you for the $2. New referee shirts as well. And they look kind of like normal shirts. They look like shirts you would wear out, just without the WWE logo on them. But you take away the WWE logo, and you just see a dude wearing a shirt like that, you're not going to think twice. It looks like a normal-ass shirt. So they're kind of gray with like a black stripe, right? Black couple of stripes on the side. And the WWE logo, they look more like casual. So I didn't hate those either. I don't need the zebra stripes. They're stupid. We didn't used to do that back in the day. Refs had the powder blue. Then they went to zebra stripes. WWE and WCW both changed when they did the blue and bow tie and the stripes. I felt like WWE was doing the blue bow and bow tie when NWA and WCW was doing the stripes, and then they flopped. Then WWE was doing the stripes and WCW was doing the bow tie. So now we've got more of just like a standard, polo shirt, collared shirt. They look nice and I like it. Oh, and this guy has a kid with a Kardashian. Interesting. Okay. Well, good for him. Let me see if there's any other supers if I need to answer here before we get going. WWE fan, thanks for the $2. Anyone else get the vibe though that The Rock won't be at WrestleMania? That could be the case. And we got another 5 from you. WWE fan, Greg, I'm late to the game and I'm on a delay watching Raw. Just got done with Liv vs. Rhea. What happens with the new bloodline now? Do they break up? I don't know. WWE fan, we'll talk about that in a minute. And I want to show some love to A&B Combos for stopping in. They have a great channel. Go check them out if you can access their channel from the chat. Thanks for stopping in and showing some love. I had a rough one tonight, man. Power went out. I had to miss the first 2 hours of Raw, but we got up here for the end of it, and now I'm ready to review this bitch. Hopefully I've gotten all the super chats and I didn't miss any there, but we'll get back to that. Let's talk about the show. So we talked about the changes. We still talked about the new looks, the new camera angles, the announce team, the ring, the referee shirts, all that stuff. In terms of what we saw on the show, it was opened with, like I said, that great video package that was shown on those giant curtains, and then they lifted the curtains up to reveal Triple H, who welcomed us, I should say, to this new era in WWE. And the show then opened up with The Rock. The Rock is the first person to come out. He was confirmed for the show yesterday out of his own mouth when he decided that he was going to be at Raw. And it sounded like that decision was made kind of abruptly. Like 2 days prior, we were hearing that WWE Creative is still operating under the assumption that he's not going to be at WrestleMania, but of course that could change. There's also some stories of some Moana reshoots that he's committed to that might be in the way, but also that the creative team, is pretty much knowing and assuming that The Rock is probably not going to be able to stay away from WrestleMania. He's going to want to get in there. And I've done enough ranting on this. We're not going to go through that again, but I've expressed my frustration with the fact that, The Rock isn't giving WWE an answer on whether or not he wants to work WrestleMania or not. And like I said, unless he already has, and WWE already knows yay or nay, and they're just keeping us on our toes, and in that case, it's fine. But it feels like, Rock not being sure or certain what he wants to do is not a good thing to do to the creative team. You want to put forth the best show possible. So I really just would rather Rock not be there. Like, I want Rock to be a part of WrestleMania, but I want to know that going in. I wanted to know since last year that he is definitely going to be involved in a match this year. And we all thought that going up until maybe the end of the summer, and then we started hearing reports to the contrary. And also it probably has a lot to do with, ego and politics and whatnot. And maybe The Rock, he only wants to work WrestleMania if he can see a way to get in there and get himself a big win or a big match. And if he wants to work with Roman, he's going to want to win. WWE might not want him to, and I don't know how all of that works. Last year, it felt like he was fucking things up, and we went and eventually got back on the track that we were on previously. So this year, I don't know what to think. So the fact that The Rock was coming out here, I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens here. Because if he just comes out to say a bunch of nonsense and then leave, nothing is going to change. That's not going to reveal anything. That's going to give off the impression that, yeah, Rock probably isn't going to do Mania. He just wanted to be a part of this big Raw show. And like I said last night on the watch-along stream, I'm like, we don't need a Legends night. That's not what we needed tonight. I did not need The Undertaker or Hulk Hogan to be at this fucking show. They were unnecessary. And I quite frankly didn't need The Rock there either unless The Rock was coming in to do something or to set something up at WrestleMania. He might have not, because he just came out and said a bunch of stupid shit on the mic that I barely listened to. He did say that the crowd was WWE's largest arena gate in history in the Intuit Dome, which is not surprising based on what they are charging for tickets these days. And then Rock congratulating the fans for breaking their fucking wallets to be there. Yeah, thanks, Rock. So congratulates them on the largest gate, but that's such a stupid thing to congratulate people for. That's all just 100% based on what WWE charges for the ticket. They can make these gates whatever they want. So it's really annoying when they tout that. And then The Rock talked about, I don't know, whatever, stupid tequila and his mana or what. Don't you hate it when The Rock says mana? I hate it. I hate it. So he said all of this stupid shit. And then he leaves. Good. Bye. He said nothing. Nobody interrupted him. He didn't call out anybody. Or actually, he did. I'm sorry. He did call out a few people. He shouted out Cody Rhodes, who was in the crowd, and complimented him and put him over for putting the company on his back and carrying the company. And he also put over Roman Reigns and talked about his cousin, how much he loves him and all that. So there was some love shown there. So I feel like the WrestleMania direction for Cody has to be something other than The Rock now, because it felt like they tried to squash The Rock and Cody stuff here tonight, right? And trying to let the fans know that if that's the match you think you're getting at WrestleMania, stop thinking that. So I guess I appreciate that. I think it's a little weird that after what The Rock did to Cody, beating the piss out of him in his own bus in the rain and talking smack about his mama, that the two of them can just hug in the parking garage now, less than a year later. I'd still hold that grudge if I was Cody. So the fact that nothing was sparked there, nothing stopped or started there, makes me think that Cody and Rock isn't going to be the match. So The Rock could very well still not be working WrestleMania, because that's all he did was come out and speak. But we would see him again after the opening match, which was Tribal Combat. Solo Sikoa versus Roman Reigns for the Ula Fala. The winner will be presented the Ula Fala by Paul Heyman and be anointed the real, actual, official, undisputed tribal chief, head of the table. And Solo comes out first. Roman makes his grand entrance. Good to see the wise man back by his side, who no longer looks sickly and pale and bloodshot. He's now tanned and happy. So we got a happy Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman had to hold the Ula Fala for the whole match as Roman and Solo beat each other down. Now, there was a couple of times there where I thought Solo would actually get the win here, because he did have some help from Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu, who hit the ring. Jacob hit his big moonsault on Roman Reigns, and I thought they were going to put him down there, but I'm like, it's not going to end like this. There's just no way Roman isn't going to get beat in the curtain jerker. So there wasn't a near fall that could really convince me, but one of them almost did. I'm like, no, they're not going to do this. And sure enough, Roman Reigns kicked out. Sami Zayn and Jey Uso attempted to come out and help out as well and run off Jacob and Tama Tonga, but then Kevin Owens showed up and attacked Roman Reigns, hit him with a stunner, started beating down Roman Reigns, and then Cody came out to make the save. I kind of liked that. I liked the overbooking. If you keep this stuff confined to like the bloodline matches, and having 19 guys run in isn't going to be like the norm for them, and it's just kind of used primarily for matches involving people in the orbit of this story, then I'm fine with that. I actually like the bonkersness of it. I like more people coming out. I like it getting wacky. So the fact that, the bloodline was out there, Sammy and Jimmy and Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes, their issue and feud spilling over from SmackDown into a Monday Night Raw match, I liked all of that. So in the end, though, once everybody was ran out of the ring and it was back to Solo and Roman one-on-one, Roman was able to dispose of him with a Superman punch and a spear and beat Solo Sikoa 1, 2, 3 in the middle and become the true tribal chief. Paul Heyman enters the ring with the Ula Fala, and right before he's about to put the Ula Fala on Roman, out comes The Rock. So, okay, Rock's back. Rock, and help me out because I can't remember. Short-term memory is an issue. Did The Rock's music play or no? When Rock came out at the end of that, I don't think his music played, did it? I think he actually just walked out there, which is good. It shouldn't play. But my memory might be wrong on that. Try to remind me in the chat there. Lots of Gaga in the match. I love that. I like Gaga. So The Rock comes out and he asks Paul Heyman to give him the Ufalafa, and Paul Heyman does. Rock takes it over to Roman and puts it on him, holds out his hand. The two give a little hand thing. They hug, and then Rock backs up, and Roman's got his back turned to Rock. And the camera even tightens up on Roman, too. And I'm like, holy shit, Rock's going to blast him from behind. And I was watching, but it didn't happen. I'm like, okay. Because I thought this could be a tease. If Rock is going to do anything at WrestleMania now, it doesn't feel like he's going to work with Cena or Cody. I feel like we might be getting that Roman match. And so it feels like tonight what they've done, I just hope they have to have two alternative plans for Roman then. So if there was no music, okay, thank you for that. So Rock being there and celebrating with Roman, congratulating him and presenting him with the Ula Fala, that right there could be your tease for WrestleMania. Then because that's the match that, would be cool to get. I just didn't want it for the championship last year, But Rock, putting over Roman Reigns, hopefully at least, but Rock and Roman Reigns for the true, head of the family. I don't even know, like Rock, I don't even think would want to put him over. Like Rock had to have a special contract drawn up between how many punches him and Vin Diesel can throw on each other, okay? This guy's got a fucking ego. And so I just don't know. Incidentally, did you see Vin Diesel say, "Hey, Dwayne," at the Golden Globes last night? That was actually kind of cool. I've never seen any of those Fast movies, but I was kind of fascinated with the feud between those guys. With Vin calling him his little brother and all that shit. Rock is just so much more physically impressive than Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel just looks like kind of an everyday, just big guy. Rock, I think Rock just dwarfs him in just presence, But The Rock, would he want to come into WrestleMania to work a program with Roman Reigns and lose? He was kind of dropping hints that he's pulling "it doesn't work for me, brother" shit. That's what that whole "we put our pencils down" shit was about last year. We put our pencils down, thought we'd go back to the drawing board. I'm like, no, they weren't going to put up with you winning, asshole. So I feel like I just don't know if The Rock's ego can take it, or whatever. So yeah, I did see the new one. I saw when Rock held the ropes for Roman. So I felt like that right there could be a tease. So maybe maybe WWE is saying, all right, let's just plant this seed. That way, if Rock decides he wants to work Mania in the next few weeks, then we've got this match to do. But otherwise, we'll send Roman on his way. So to WrestleMania, doing whatever he's gonna do. So, like, hypothetically here, let's just pretend that Rock's not at Mania. No Rock at Mania. He's got to film them Moana reshoots or whatever it is, whatever he's busy doing. He's not going to be at WrestleMania. Good. What does Roman Reigns do? It's got to be CM Punk. So maybe this is what WWE is thinking. Cody and Cena, Rock and Roman, and Rollins and Punk. If Rock doesn't work with Roman, then it's Roman and Punk. And Rollins, I don't know who Rollins works with, but Rollins needs to work with somebody important. It could be a triple threat. I'd hate that, but it could be. You could do Rollins, Roman, Punk. You could do Rollins, Roman, Punk. Think of where that would put, that would put Rollins in a tight spot because he's still very bitter about the Roman Reigns stuff. He hates both guys kind of like equally, so there wouldn't be too many alliances forming in a match like that because Seth hates Roman, Seth hates Punk, Punk hates Seth, and Roman and Punk obviously have their issue. There's no two of them that could really team up on the other one, except for maybe just for a few seconds in the match, Roman and Seth putting a Shield beatdown on Punk. So it could be that Rollins versus Gunther, yes. It could be Rollins versus Gunther, but that's if Gunther retains. See, my feeling is that Punk is going to beat Gunther at the Rumble. And then if he does, I'd like to see Rollins beat Punk for the title at WrestleMania. So Rollins versus Gunther, that could work for the championship, if Punk, but what the fuck is Punk? Rollins and Gunther would not have to not be for the championship, Rollins versus Gunther is the match. Yeah. Yeah. That Zach Galifianakis meme with all the equations? It's like that going on here. So lots to kind of mull over and think about, but you can see all the different paths they have, and they all look pretty good. And Punk said on post Raw that he was gunning after Gunther or Cody, so perhaps Gunther. Well, yeah, Odyssey. Well, that's what I've been saying. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks, ever since the Punk and Rollins match was made for January 6th tonight. I said Rollins will win. He'll beat Gunther for the championship, and then he'll drop the championship at WrestleMania. I don't think CM Punk would win a championship at WrestleMania. I just don't think WWE would give him that moment. Now, I know everybody's working together all fine and happy, but Punk even needs to understand that that's probably too much to ask. Punk should be more than happy to go into WrestleMania as champion and drop the title. Because if it's just about, he didn't say he wants to win a WrestleMania main event. He wants to be in a WrestleMania main event. So Punk can just go in as champion in the main event of one of the nights and drop the belt to either Roman or either Seth Rollins. That's what I see happening. And you're right, Juliet, after the Royal Rumble, we will see clearly now. Kind of. We probably still won't because we didn't see clearly after last year's Rumble for a couple of weeks. Yeah, I love Isaac. I love Gunther as a dominant champion too, but you got to do what the fans want. Right now, Punk is super popular. He's the one generating the most buzz and reaction from the fans. And when it comes down to like matches that you really want to see, you know, you want to see Punk and Roman a lot more than you want to see Gunther and Punk. You know, Gunther and Roman would be another one. Gunther and Roman is a match that we should at least consider as well. And, you know, Punk could go after Cody at WrestleMania, and Gunther, you know, could work with Roman for the title. That would be fun. There's Gunther and Roman could be a match they could do as well. So there's lots to do. And if it was going to be, you know, Punk and Gunther, you know, Odyssey said, or whoever it was saying, I'm not sure if he beat him clean or whatever. Well, you can do the Goldberg thing. You can do what they did with Eddie and Brock and have Goldberg come in, spear Gunther, cost him the belt. You know, Punk now goes into WrestleMania and Gunther is focused on Goldberg revenge. Then Gunther can be occupied through WrestleMania on his Goldberg revenge and then retarget the championship after WrestleMania and win it back. So that could work too. So that was pretty much what we saw in the first match. Am I missing a super there, Mike? Thanks for the 5. Did any of you notice Paul's face when Roman won? Didn't look happy. I think Rock and Paul are in cahoots to screw Roman. Just a gut feel. I was looking at it on my phone, but I thought Paul's face looked happy when Roman won. Maybe not. I'll have to look at that again. I'll definitely be catching some replays here tonight. So after Tribal Combat, it is time for a vignette. And the vignette confirms that it will be Penta, who is coming to WWE, who I believe will be facing Chad Gable next week. We got the little vignette tonight, the same one with the 0 and the line through it. And then last week we got the mask. And tonight we got the mask again, but now it's clearly spelled out Penta. So it's going to be Penta El Cerro coming in to WWE probably next week, because in a later segment, Chad Gable asks Adam Pearce to find him the best luchador or something like that. Like basically just gave it away. So Gable is an interesting choice to be the person to put over Penta, but you could probably do, they can probably do something very similar. They're very different wrestlers, but you could do something very similar to the Taz and Kurt Angle match from the Royal Rumble in 2000. Like, you knew it was Taz. They were playing the vignettes too, right? And there was just like the orange and the black and stuff. So the Penta vignettes remind me of the Taz vignettes from 2000 when you just knew it was him. And going into the Garden that night, WWE didn't have to say it. The fans knew it. Everybody knew that it was going to be Taz. And with this, it's very similar. Now, they've gone ahead and just told you now. And back in 2000, I can't remember. They were running some of those 13 vignettes prior to Taz's debut, right? Wasn't there a couple of flashes on screen of like the 13 and the thing? So whatever they were doing, you knew it was Taz. And so this is kind of the same thing. They went ahead and went all the way with it and actually spelled out his name, literally spelled it out for the audience. But it's kind of the same thing. So now this is going to be somebody that's developed a run and a reputation outside of the company who all of the fans know. And Taz got a huge reaction in the Garden that night. And I think they can probably achieve something similar to Penta. And he's in there with Gable, the Angle's modern doppelganger here, or counterpart, and put together kind of a similar type of match and a similar win for Penta as he hits the WWE on Raw next week. That's going to be crazy. And we're going to be here watching that together, provided my goddamn power doesn't go out again like it did tonight. So we will see. So then after the Penta tease, or the Penta confirmation, we get John Cena. Out comes John Cena. He's wearing some kind of like LA Laker-ish type of gear. He's kind of in purple. Looks a little bit like Barney, or maybe it wasn't purple. Maybe it was like navy blue. I forgot. And Cena is out there. And he starts talking about his retirement tour. Now, he had the hat on and stuff. I could not tell what his hair looks like. But I'm telling you, Cena, when you make your comeback here and you're in the Rumble and you're having your retirement year throughout 2025 here, do something about that hair. You got to buzz it again. You got to buzz it all the way, and you got to hit the fucking tanning bed, because that Crispin Glover shit that you were doing before ain't working, dude. You got the bald spot can be seen from the International Space Station, and you're paler than Sheamus. So let's do something about that, my friend. It's a cosmetic business, just like Cody said. Got to look good out there, man. So get your ass in the tanning bed, do something about your hair, and give us the Cena that we know and remember. And he did have some energy in his voice. I was happy to hear that from John tonight. And he did kind of talk about the losing streak he's been on. You know, he's only kind of been moderately active for the past like 5 years in the company. Probably more. I mean, he's only been semi-active for like, 6 years or 7 years now. So it's been a while. So since he's been, full time. So because of this, he just does not feel like a 17th world championship is even in the cards. There's no way that can happen. But hey, he brought it up. He brought up the 17th championship. And he said that there's really no way winning the championship would be in the cards unless he won the Money in the Bank, or won the Elimination Chamber, or won the Royal Rumble, perhaps. And crowd kind of starts rumbling. And then he basically just declares that not only is he going to be in the Royal Rumble, he is going to win the Royal Rumble. And when he said, I am going to win the Royal Rumble, in that John Cena voice, man, it took me back. It took me back. And this channel was founded nearly 15 years ago, on the concept of John Cena hate, and how I just thought the fans were insane for how crazy they were over disliking this guy. And and while also being able to recognize, why they're mad, they just do a poor job of articulating it. And I said, there's going to come a time where you will be nostalgic for him. There will come a time where he will be out of the ring, or almost out of the ring, or about to retire, or go into the Hall of Fame, and he's going to be cheered and he's going to be loved. And you are going to look at the product that you currently see, and you're going to miss the days when he was here. And I've been fairly vindicated over the past 5 years, because fans really have turned a corner on John for the most part. And now that they know that he's not a threat to winning all the time, he's not there doing like what Charlotte is doing now and whatnot. He's been gone. That they finally, moved all their anger to something else. Then it went to Roman for a few years. And for a lot of fans, it's on Tony Khan now. So they need somewhere to direct their rage, because all wrestling fans have rage for some reason, and they just need somewhere to direct it. So you got guys in the wrestling universe right now that are absorbing all that. So, Cena's in the clear for right now from the wrath of these wackos. So now that he's back, he's had his retirement run. I think everybody's going to kind of accept whatever he does here. And I think that I don't necessarily need John Cena to win a 17th world championship, but if he does, I think he's definitely a caliber of star in the WWE that should get a final run like that for everything he did. He carried, and he was the top guy in WWE for a lot of crappy years there. And still, despite all of that, was nominated every year for Match of the Year. He still, even though he had a very crazy style and he was not Eddie, he wasn't Brett, he wasn't Shawn, he wasn't Angle, he still had good matches, and fans who felt like he couldn't wrestle or didn't know how to wrestle, or he was ruining wrestling, or cancer or anything like that, were dumb. And so now that we get Cena in his final year here, I kind of want him to win the championship, especially if it's not, as long as it's not, phoned in type of thing. I want Cena to be Cena. I want him to bring back some of the memories of what this guy used to do and how unbeatable he seemed to be at times. And he's still in great shape, and he's always been kind of a genetic freak of nature in that regard. So I feel like he's got it in him. When he came back previously, like I was there at WrestleMania 39, even from where I was sitting, Cena just looked weak. He lost to Austin Theory. He didn't look good. And, I just want him back. I want just a little taste of that Cena to kind of say goodbye to him, because he's going to be one of those guys, unless, you never say never. Even Shawn came back and had the match in Saudi Arabia. Austin worked a match at WrestleMania less than 3 years ago. So Cena could be enticed back into the ring in 10 years when he's 55 or whatever. It's possible. But I'm hoping that this is an actual retirement and he actually does, pass the baton. And one of the scenarios we laid out on the podcast on Saturday was that John Cena, winning the Rumble or the Chamber and then winning the championship at WrestleMania, and he might, and I still want to see Kevin Owens. I still want to see Kevin Owens beat Cody. And I want to see if Kevin Owens beats Cody, then maybe John Cena can beat Kevin Owens. But if Kevin Owens beats Cody, I'd love to see John Cena win the title. Or if Cody retains and goes into Mania and takes the belt into Mania to face John Cena, that's an interesting match too, because the only way I would be okay with, well, I guess I don't want to say okay, but I envision Cody beating John Cena in John Cena's last match, not at WrestleMania. So maybe John Cena beats Cody for the championship at WrestleMania, and we talked about this on Saturday, and then Cody beats Cena in his retirement match in December. And one thing I mentioned, a couple of spots you could do that in. You could do it, obviously, on a Saturday night's main event. If they run one next December, they probably will. You could also do it on the house show on December 26th in Madison Square Garden, the day after Christmas. Main event, John Cena versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. And John Cena's retirement match is a house show match. But they film it. They film it either for a Netflix release or they televise it live. And when you think about that, Cody would get to win the championship in the building that his dad attempted to win it in. And I worry that those are too big. Like, who gets the spotlight there? Does Cody get the spotlight for winning the championship, or does John Cena get the goodbye spotlight? I just don't know. But I think that that's the way somebody would, if I was John Cena or anybody in his position, that would be my dream to go out that way. To have a retirement year where I beat the champ, I have a run, and then right at my last match, he beats me, and I officially pass the baton to him. This is yours now. Give him all the love, and I literally ride off into the sunset. And that'd do that shit to me. So something like that would work. But John Cena now mentioning in promos that the championship is something that he wants to attain, also letting us know that really only the way he could do that is to be a Rumble, Chamber, or Money in the Bank briefcase winner. That means if he doesn't win the Rumble or the Chamber, it's going to have to be the briefcase, because it doesn't sound like he's going to be able to get a title shot in any other way. So I feel like they might have spoiled that he's either going to win the Rumble or the Chamber or the Money in the Bank. And, if Punk is going to wrestle against Gunther, and they're already having a match, Cody's got his title match against Owens. The only other kind of major name, and The Rock is out. Let's assume The Rock is out. The only other major name that really leaves in the Rumble itself, I guess, would be Seth and Cena and Roman. So whoever doesn't win there could win the Chamber. But I think if Punk is going to be wrestling Gunther, I think Cena is kind of the one I want to see win the Rumble now. Seth is another option, but I think it might be more fun for Seth to win the Chamber, because another thing you got to think about with these Rumbles, it's something I've mentioned before. I would assume that unless WWE tries to change this, like back in the day, they did a good job of making the big gold of the WWE title equally as important. And I would just think that whoever wins the Royal Rumble would want Cody's belt, Whoever wins the Rumble would want Cody's belt. Whoever wins the Chamber would want the other belt. It would feel weird if the winner of the Rumble, if John Cena won the Rumble and then he challenged Gunther. I feel like whoever wins the Rumble would want to challenge Cody, would want the big prize, the prize that Roman held for 4 years or whatever. So that's the title that they would want. So I feel like John Cena winning the Rumble he could challenge Cody. And then Seth can win the chamber and challenge Punk, who by then will be champion after beating Gunther. That's kind of where I want to see it all going. So many options. All right, so John Cena basically just declares for the Royal Rumble, and that was it. Nobody interrupted him. He didn't kick off a program or a feud with anybody. I thought Logan Paul might come out and interrupt him. We didn't really see. I think Logan was on the show, but he wasn't in the ring doing anything. So luckily, no Logan Paul and John Cena match was teased tonight. Thank God. And then after that, it was time for the Women's World Championship match. Liv Morgan defending against Rhea Ripley. This is a long time coming. The minute they made this match, I'm like, okay, this is it. She's not going to survive anymore. She won the belt all the way back in May in Saudi Arabia, beating Becky Lynch after she won the title after Rhea Ripley was injured. So Liv has held the belt all the way through the year. She even defended it against Rhea Ripley at SummerSlam. That's when Dom turned. And she survived with that thing all the way up until now. But when they made this match, there was no way they were going to go with another screwy finish here. They need to send Rhea Ripley into WrestleMania to be champion, to have a big-time match up there. I personally think she's going to wrestle Io Sky and drop the belt to her at WrestleMania. That's what I think is going to happen there. But it could be a Becky or a Charlotte coming back to challenge her as well. I feel like if Becky's coming back, she's going to be going after the Intercontinental Championship that is probably going to be won and held at the time by Lyra Valkyria. And if Charlotte comes back, I think she's going to target Tiffany Stratton over on SmackDown. So Rhea and Io Sky, to me, sounds like a really fun match. So tonight, Rhea Ripley needed to be set on that course, and she needed to beat down Liv Morgan. She did. Liv did kick out of a Riptide, though. One Riptide. So it wasn't like a squash. She didn't make mincemeat out of Liv. I felt like it was going to be a dominant win and a dominant finish, but Liv did get some shots in there, and she even hit, I think, 1 or 2 Oblivions on Rhea Ripley, and Ripley was able to kick out. But much like the Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa match, even on some of those near falls, they weren't convincing me. No fucking way is Liv Morgan walking out of the arena tonight as the champion. And she did not. Rhea eventually put her down. I think it took 3 Riptides, because after the one that Morgan kicked out of, Rhea eventually hit a Riptide on Liv and then picked her up and hit her with a second one. And she's like, boom, back to back, and did that really awesome, sexy pin that Rhea Ripley likes to do. Wins the championship, celebrates with the championship, and then Dominic sneaks in from behind. Looks like he's going to attack her. She turns around, looks at him. He wants a big hug. He wants to reunite. He wants to reconcile, because now she has the championship and Dom is a gold digger. And Ripley puts the belt down, goes in for a big hug, and then kicks him right in the dick. That was great. And then in one of the more bizarre moments of the night, as Rhea Ripley is celebrating, leaving the ring with her new women's championship, dong, The Undertaker comes out. Because why wouldn't he? Of course The Undertaker would come out, because him and Rhea Ripley have decades of history. What? Why the fuck why didn't Damian Priest come out there? So we get the dong, and then we get American Badass. So now then they start playing the Kid Rock song. Undertaker's old ass comes out there on his motorbike, and he drives it around slow as shit, and he passes right by Rhea Ripley. And I'm like, what? And this girl just won the championship, and here comes Undertaker on his motorbike, and he drives into the ringside area around the ring while that stupid Kid Rock song is playing. I'm a much bigger Sad But True fan than I am American Badass fan. And Taker comes around down back the aisleway, and then he sees Ripley, and he gives her a little fist bump, and then the two of them do the little hand raised thing together. And I guess it made for a cool moment, a legend, of the Undertaker status, coming and giving a little rub to Ripley. It's nice, but like I said, we didn't need a Legends Night. If you really want this to be a new era, you need to show us that. This parade of legends, it's so Vince McMahon. Vince is the one that just loved doing this shit. And Triple H, he's doing much better than Vince. I'm so glad to have Triple H and not Vince McMahon in charge. But this WWE mentality to still do this. I have no problem with legends. I have no problem with seeing legends. But every time you have a big show, you should not dedicate 30 minutes of it to legends. Just have them in, bring them in sporadically, and do Hall of Fames and celebrate their lives and careers in the WWE way. But, these big, milestone shows, I don't mind a legend coming out. I don't mind The Rock and shit like that. But, just bringing just randos in and stuff. We didn't need Hulk Hogan. And we're going to talk about Hulk Hogan in a minute. After Ripley won the championship, that's when Gable asked Adam Pearce to book him in a one-on-one match with a luchador next week. That's hopefully going to be Penta. And then it's time for Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre. So like I said on the podcast, Jey Uso lost on Friday night. So I was not thinking he was going to lose here. I thought there was going to be a DQ or a distraction roll-up. It wasn't a distraction roll-up. It was just a regular roll-up. Uso got the pin on McIntyre with a roll-up and beat McIntyre and kind of surprised him with a quick one there. So guess that's kind of surprising, but not really when you think about it. And we'll see if that feud continues. And then in my favorite part of the night, my favorite part of the whole show tonight, it's time for Hulk Hogan to come out and talk about his real American beer. So we already got The Undertaker out there. The Rocks have been out here. Cena's been out here. Hulk Hogan's music hits and the Intuit Dome booed their asses off. Out comes Hogan. He's getting on the mic, trying to put over Netflix and WWE and name-dropping Randy Savage and talking about a stupid, fucking disgusting pisswater beer, real American beer. Real American beer. Imagine the type of man that buys real American beer. I can smell him. He definitely drives a pickup truck. It's a very... People complain about AEW's niche audience. You talk about a niche audience. Holy shit, real American beer. So he's out there plugging that beer. WWE has entered a partnership with him because the beer was on the ring mat. And so Hogan comes out there to try to cut a Hogan promo. And to the surprise of no one, gets his ass booed. Why does he get booed? Because he's a piece of shit. That's why. And WWE continues to parade this man around. They finally cut ties with him a few years ago, and then they felt like when the smoke blowed over after he's dropping the N-word on fucking videotapes and shit, they think it's like okay to bring him back, and then he gives like the worst apology in the history of apologies to the WWE locker room, and they still bring his ass out here. Hey, I would love nothing more to be able to see the Babe Ruth of wrestling from time to time in pro wrestling, but Hogan fucked his life up. Hogan made a fool of himself ever since he left the ring, and he's turned into such a goddamn dirtbag. And the fans know it. He brings nothing. He adds nothing. We don't need him. We don't want him. Why do you need to bring him out there? I thought the mentality of believing that, Hogan being there, is going to generate, more excitement from the fans. I thought that mentality was gone with Vince. And what did Nick Khan and Triple, like, they're not stupid. Like, were they not on the plane saying, on the private plane flying to the show today, being like, are you really a little worried about having Hogan go out there? No, it's going to be good. We know the fans don't like to think about the past. They just like to see what's in front of them. Come on. Like, how dumb are you? What kind of reaction did you think he was going to get? And so Hogan, it was very easy to hear the boos. It's not like it was some boos. It's not like it was half the crowd. It was all them motherfuckers booing him. And it was LA. You put Hogan in Tampa, or you put him in dear shit Alabama somewhere, he probably will get cheered. But this is Los Angeles. And if he goes to a big market money city, if he goes to Los Angeles or a Seattle, or a Chicago or a New York City, he's going to get booed, bitch. So he got booed to shit there in LA. It was awesome. And I'm wondering now, like, I hope WWE, he'll get booed in Vegas. If they try to bring him to WrestleMania and do anything, he's going to get booed there too. So I think that bringing him out, I hope that they realized that reaction and they don't just pretend it didn't happen, and they're continuing. I mean, obviously we're going to have to see ads for that beer. They're going to be, selling the beer to us hard and pushing the beer on us and peddling Hogan's real American lager or whatever. So we're not going to be able to avoid, the advertisements or the in-between tonight's matches brought to you by Real American Beer, that type of stuff. But having Hogan out there on camera, I'm hoping WWE now said, okay, maybe we don't want to do that again. Because why would you rock a boat that's sailing so well right now, seemingly? Like the attendance numbers and this, the business that WWE is doing right now. Everything is going very, very well, and I would not risk, throwing, a racist boulder into my gears there and grinding them all up. Why would you do that? So Hogan getting his ass booed was wonderful, brought joy to my heart, filled me with joy, because I love when pieces of shit are told they're a piece of shit by thousands of people at the same time. You love to see it. So Hogan and his stupid beer can go fuck himself. We don't need him. We don't want him. He isn't necessary for today's product in any way. And like I said, if Hogan would have kept his nose clean and not turned into such a dumb son of a bitch for his whole life, I'd have no problem with seeing Hogan and his face being slapped on shit, because I grew up to Hogan. I had a Hulk Hogan birthday cake when I was 10. I had Hulk Hogan action figures. I was very distraught when he lost the belt in 1988, on the main event to Andre. My parents put me to bed that night. They came up to my room to check on me, see how I was doing, making sure I wasn't leaning out the fucking window. So trust me, I used to love Hogan, as a kid, but I'm 47 years old now. And now I can recognize a piece of shit when I see one, and he is one. And I don't think he's good for wrestling, and I don't think the fans or pro wrestling or the roster in any company, AEW, WWE, he brings nothing to them, Could you really even have, if you're a young up-and-coming rookie, could you really even have an honest conversation with Hogan? If you wanted to pick his brain and get some advice, could you even trust it? There's just nothing about him that's likable or appealing. If I was CM Punk, I would have asked Triple H. I mean, Punk doesn't like Hogan. Triple H, hey, what are the consequences if I tell this guy to go fuck himself? Am I going to lose my WrestleMania main event? Yeah, you would. All right, I guess I got to just mind my P's and Q's then. And by the way, Saudi Arabia, Royal Rumble? I'll go if I win. How about that? But anyway, as you can tell, Greg is not a Hulk Hogan fan. And it was nice to see him booed so viciously by the LA crowd. And hopefully WWE will stop touching him because he sucks. Anyway, what happened after Hogan? It was time for, the main event. CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. And this match in the ring, I would say, was not tremendous. Standard stuff here. I don't think, it certainly wasn't Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, that's for sure, but I didn't think it was going to be. Punk is the style of worker he is. Rollins is the style of worker he is. I was hoping they would have a good match that would look maybe good in a return at WrestleMania. And I think this was, just from my eyesight watching it with you guys, this match was just okay. It was just okay. I didn't hate it, but I thought McIntyre and Punk was much better in the Hell in the Cell. And, if these guys have a return match, I think hopefully the return match will be a little bit better. We did see both guys, this is the first time they've wrestled in, 12 years or something like that. I think 2013, a couple matches, right? So it's been a while since we had these guys in there. So it was kind of cool to see that visual. But then once they got cooking and got going, it just became, a match. Now we saw each guy hit their finishers. Neither one of them looked great. Seth Rollins hit Punk with 2 GTSs that Punk kicked out of both. Punk also hit Rollins with a stomp. Neither guy hit the other's finisher very perfectly. It didn't look that good. The stomp was especially bad, but Punk was just being careful. That's all. They were in the outside. Punk ate a pedigree on the table, on the announce table on the outside. And in the end, I forgot what the counter sequence was, but it was Rollins or Punk lifting up Rollins and hitting him with a GTS. And then I think Rollins kind of stayed on his feet and then hit the ropes. Punk went down to a knee, and then Rollins kind of fell on top of Punk, like fireman's carry style. And it was funny, because I can relate to what Punk was going through. I was like, is Punk going to be able to stand him up? Punk's down on his knees, and he's my age. And, I've had this fate happen to me at work just last week, and I was had to go upstairs and into a storage room to get something, and I bent down. I had to go all the way down to my knees, and I had to lift something like crazy heavy. And when I went up, I was like, oh. I was like, I can't do it without a little extra support. And I had to kind of help myself up. I couldn't just stand. And I was like, oh, I'm getting old. And so Punk, when he tried to stand up with Rollins, he couldn't get him up. And I think Rollins kind of helped give him the little jump there and got him up, hit him with a second GTS. And that was enough to put Rollins away. And Punk got the win, just like I thought he would. But I think the reason he got the win now is because he's not going to be getting the win down the road. either at WrestleMania or wherever these two guys face off next. I think the next time they get in the ring, Rollins, the next time Rollins, and he's owed wins in my mind, he's owed wins by Cody, Punk, and Roman. All three of those guys owe him a win in the middle of the ring. So whether or not Rollins gets all those wins or not, he's definitely gearing up for, you would think, like a run, because everybody that, all the top stars, he's like spent the last 2 years putting over. So I feel like he's got some payback coming his way, and hopefully Seth will get his moment either at Mania, or maybe Seth is earmarked for something later in the year, maybe an international show, maybe SummerSlam. You know, I mean, you could wait 8 months. You could do that. I'd be fine with that. You know, you could wait all the way until SummerSlam to do Rollins and Punk again. You know, maybe Roman, it's Roman and Punk for the title, and then Roman beats Punk at Mania, and then maybe Punk, I'd like to see Punk win Money in the Bank. That would be so fun. Or maybe Punk then gets a title shot against a now champion Seth Rollins at SummerSlam. I beat you before, I'll beat you again. And this time Rollins wins, beats Punk, and retains his championship. You could do that too. Yeah, he did look good overall, but there were times where he looked exhausted. Yeah, he did look a little blown up. Punk is, I remember, I think it was like on his DVD or something, one of his coaches or friends said that he had lead in his ass. And I was like, he does move like that. Punk does move like he's got lead in his ass. And he just doesn't, he's not like super light on his feet. You know, like how some guys can literally float and flutter up to the top rope. Punk is just, he's not an athlete. You can go back and look at his backyard wrestling tapes. He was just a little punk kid. He wasn't out there, I don't think he did any amateur wrestling, and he definitely didn't play football or baseball or anything like that. He doesn't really do athletics. So he just became a wrestler, got, good at it, got really good on the mic, and had some really good matches when he was younger, because he is capable. He's a good worker. He's not stupid. He knows what to do. But in terms of just like raw athletic talent, he doesn't have much of it. So he's got to make up for that in other ways. I've always thought he's done a really good job doing that. That Hell in the Cell match with Drew was an excellent example of that. The dog collar match with Max, same thing. Punk can tell stories, and that's what it's all about. And maybe he didn't tell as good a one here tonight, but I think he'll have a chance to do it again. It could be a little bit concerning, though, if you can't go in there and have a good match with Seth. Who can you have a good match with? And I'm not even sure if it's fair to call this match bad. It just wasn't dazzling, And yeah, you noticed him struggling there in that GTS as well. So overall, I think tonight's show, I'm kind of in agreement with you guys. Earlier when I asked you how you thought of it and to give me grades, I was getting us some C's and 6.5s and 7s. I think I agree with that because there was no surprises. There was no attacks. There was no big WrestleMania, program set into motion. We got no answers out of The Rock. We maybe got a tease if they want to do a Rock and Roman match. They've got the video footage now for their, vignettes and whatnot. They've got that image of The Rock and Roman face to face with the Ula Fala right there. If they want to go in that direction, they've already got some early footage for that shot. So maybe that's what they did here tonight. The WWE truly doesn't know if Rock is going to change his mind and try to shoehorn his way into WrestleMania next month. So they want to present this, idea or plant this seed early so they can at least go with that. And then if Rock doesn't go to Mania, then they have something else planned for Roman. But either way, I feel like that's unfair to WWE and their creative and the potential wrestlers who, could have title shots affected by The Rock's wishy-washiness. I can't be the only one that finds that just incredibly stupid and annoying, which is why I'm hoping that this narrative and these random stories we've heard about nobody really knows what The Rock is going to do, I'm hoping that's bullshit. I'm hoping The Rock and Triple H and WWE know, but I'm starting to think they don't. They don't. Cruise back to the chat here. Let me welcome Odyssey to the family. Thanks for joining, man. Welcome. Thank you for becoming a member. And thanks to everybody, too, who hung out through the technical difficulties as my power went out right before we went live tonight. And a lot of you just hung out in the chat for 2 hours and waited for me. So that's very cool. I'm glad we were able to still come up here and get a review done and at least watch the main event together. Always ready. The only guys who are around the ages of Greg and Schleich Daddy, who's that? And myself understand Hogan means to the business overall. Yeah, I mean, I've always understood what Hogan meant, because I lived through it. But that doesn't give you a pass, same thing with Brett. Luckily Brett's not a piece of shit, but I don't agree with what Brett says half the time. I've listened to his shoot interviews and I've heard the things that he said about everybody, and I cannot stand Bill Goldberg. Think about that. This is how it shows you how I truly am I'm not unbiased, or I'm not biased, is that Brett is my favorite wrestler and I love Brett. I despise Bill Goldberg as a human being. Just do not like him. But I kind of defend Goldberg to Brett a little bit because I think Brett, it's just more of a shtick for him. And I think now it's just become more of a thing for him to talk about how bad he hates Bill Goldberg. But I have shoot interviews with Brett from back in the day that were filmed just a couple of years after he retired, where he's asked about Bill Goldberg and he has nothing but good things to say about him. Doesn't blame him for the kick. It's just an accident. Things happen. I respect Bill. I like Bill. I told him it was fine. All this shit, And then somebody brings up that if you go back and watch that Starrcade match, prior to the kick to the head, Brett does the figure 4 leg lock on the ring post and whacks the back of his head on the floor. We just watched that pay-per-view together a week ago. And somebody pointed out, watch that move. And when Brett does it, you can see him wincing and selling that. And he did fall right down on the back of his head. Maybe that's what caused the concussion. You can't really know for sure. Brett says it's the kick, and it might very well have been the kick, but maybe the ring post thing started it and the kick just cemented it as a concussion, and that's really what did you in. I don't know. But Brett seemed to have changed his tune on Goldberg over the years, where all of a sudden he blames him for everything now and hates him, thinks he's a piece of shit. I don't like Goldberg either, but I'm not even sure if I can really blame him for Brett not wrestling right now. It might not be his fault because there's really no way of knowing. There's no science that can go backwards in time and detect what actual blow, 25 years later caused a concussion. So you don't really know. So innocent until proven guilty kind of thing. So I feel like Brett is a little unfair, when it comes to Goldberg. And same thing with Hogan. He's just a lot worse. He's just like a literal piece of shit. And WWE still doing business with him and still bringing him out there is just silly and ridiculous and unneeded. And WWE does too good a business to need that. Why do you need Hogan? Well, are you worried about losing? Like AEW doesn't want to touch him. Tony Khan's banned him from all AEW shows. So it's not like he's going to go over there for a payday. So what are you afraid of? What, are you afraid of losing Hogan? Oh no, what will you do? If you're on the outs with Hogan, oh geez, how will the company survive? Who gives a shit about him? He's the one that fucked up his legacy. It's not your job to preserve that. He fucked it up. Just like the guy who used to own your company fucked his up too. So I think that parading these horrible people out there is just a really, really bizarre decision. So anywho, I want to thank you guys for hanging out tonight. I'm sorry that our stream was 2 hours shorter than it should have been because we missed the first 2 hours due to me losing power, but we got up here, we made it work, we made it right, and I was able to somewhat give you guys a thorough review despite having watch most of the show, on my trusty iPhone here, which was a pain in the ass. But anyway, I'm going to take it easy now, have some dinner, enjoy my Monday night. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on the last 3 nights. We were here Saturday night, we were here last night for the watch along, and we were here tonight. I will be posting a Royal Rumble watch along link for Sunday very soon. And I've got the day off tomorrow, so I'm going to do some channel stuff. I might pop in here with some shorts. I've got a bunch working. I got 2 in the can and a bunch in the editing. So you'll start seeing some shorts hitting the channel again after our month-long drought there. But I got a bunch coming back to try to keep content flowing on the channel. And then you might see me midweek if anything crazy breaks news-wise in the wrestling world, since now the holidays are over and shit might start happening again. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. Have a great rest of your Monday night, and I will be catching you real soon. Have a good night. Peace.